episode of On the Record with Tiffany here on 9:30 a.m. The Answer and on our affiliates, TAN TV, WOAI, and KBB 29. I have with me one of my favorite people, Representative Barbara Gervin-Hawkins. Representative Hawkins, now, I love talking to you. I can talk to you 10 times a week, but I want to talk to you today about the Voter Rights March. You just completed the Voter Rights March. We just had a march on the Department of Justice, something that we have not seen since civil rights. And you were out there getting into some good, you've been out all over the state of Texas getting into good trouble with fighting bad legislation. Can you tell me what you thought about this march?
This march was important for a couple of reasons. Number one, to bring awareness to the whole voter suppression conversation. That's number one. And people say, Justice, why are the march at the Justice Department? Well, one of the things that's part of the remedy, we believe, to fix the statewide or this countrywide by various states initiative to suppress voting is to get a federal piece of legislation passed to make sure that we have a unified form and oversight body. So at the Department of Justice, if indeed a state shows consistent discriminatory practices, then any initiatives that they try to implement have to go to the state level for review for the Department of Justice. So we're asking the Department of Justice to step in. We're also asking right now the president and the vice president to step up and help us get federal legislation passed for the voting rights. And so the march was symbolic of the many people across the country who were saying, White House or Mr. President, please have an LBJ moment. Step up, do something that's not popular. And for those young people who don't know what LBJ did in 1965, I need y'all to go to Google or wherever you go, whatever format, look it up. As he said, sometimes it's hard to get some things done, but you got to get it done. And he quoted our hero, we shall overcome, because he knew it was the right thing to do when he signed that bill into law, even though he didn't feel that he could get the support. Once it was laid out to the people and he was able to sell it to the congressional folks and the senators, he was able to get that legislation passed. We're needing Biden to do the same thing right now. We need that LBJ moment, Tiffany, where he can step up and help get federal legislation. That will keep the states from having these disparities in elections. And I want to share with you real quickly what happened in Georgia, because I don't know if enough people know about it. When Stacey Abrams ran for governor, okay, she ran against the man who was the attorney general who was doing the elections, okay? So the man you're running against controls the election. He threw out 304,000 votes and 50,000 mail-in ballots. We know that's unfair. So cheating is one thing, but when you're cheating in plain sight, there's no way he should have been controlling that election. That should have been handed off. If you're running for election, why should you be the one administering the election? Okay.
Yeah, you recuse yourself from something like that.
No doubt about it. That's the right thing to do. That's the right thing. And he refused to do that. So the march itself symbolized what we need to do in terms of getting our federal partners involved. And also, that was one part of the march. There was several marches in Washington this past weekend. It was also the Poor People's March, bring it to the forefront, because as we talk about homelessness, hey, we can't leave our poverty. We can't leave our poverty. Look at the rents in some of our states. You look at California, people living in model homes and things like that because they can't afford to rent. So we've priced ourselves out of just people having what we'll call just a normal living. But yet we're refusing to up the minimum wage. Come on now. Who can operate off of $8 an hour, multiplied by 40 hours, $320 a week? That's before taxes. You can't pay anything. You can't pay rent. You can't buy food. And we're wondering why we have the criminal element growing and we're having the homeless population growing. It's hard out here. And so we've got to get back to taking care of people. And I'm talking social programs. And Tiffany, a lot of people don't like to hear about that, social program. But guess what? They work. And in America right now, based on all the things we've neglected through the years, not just infrastructure in terms of the bridges and the roads, but we've also neglected people, the people that need our help. And so we've got to get back to really understanding social programs aren't a negative, they're a safety net. And we need to structure them to help give people that leg up or those bootstraps that they need to move forward.
And those social programs were made specifically to be safety nets.
That's
they
correct.
were made for a time like this, because if, it's not to be forgotten that we're in the middle of a pandemic, an unprecedented time where 41% of Black businesses have just closed their doors completely. We've lost business across the United States. So economically, we've been devastated. And when 41% of any population closes business, then that means jobs are lost. So what are those families that were dependent upon those jobs to do? That is why we have a safety net.
No doubt. And you know what, Tiffany, was interesting, and particularly to your listeners, and I'm glad you have such a diverse audience, is this. Think about this. We cry about the mom who may have defrauded the government $158 for food stamps, but yet we have folks at the top who are getting people involved in investment scams, stealing millions. Okay. When car companies get in trouble, we do the bailouts. How come we aren't bailing people out? And so that disparity of thought really troubles me, because I think those who don't like social programs, the abuse side of social programs is so minuscule that let's not kill the good looking for the perfect. And so, there's those folks that are always going to misuse a program, right? But don't take that 2 to 3% and now hurt 97% because you don't like social programs. I think they're important, be it on the business side, and that's large business, medium, small, and on the people side. That's the government's role. And as you said earlier, as a time such as this, we need to be innovative, creative, and start working together for the greater good.
With my special guest, Barbara Gervin-Hawkins.
All right.
A representative from the 120th district. Representative Hawkins, we've been talking about what you are doing to unify the great state of Texas, unify all of your constituents. Can you talk a little bit more about your role in doing that with voter rights suppression?
Well, again, Tiffany, voting is such a precious opportunity for all of us, and we all should be engaged and encourage people to be engaged. So for me, what I've been able to do is work with my colleagues to ensure that we can hopefully minimize bad legislation. But this session has been the worst. It's been terrifying. This 87th legislative session, my colleagues across the aisle are hell-bent on voter suppression initiatives. They're following a model that's been used across the country over these last few months. And so for me, educating my folks so that they can know what's going on, encouraging them to contact not just their local officials, but also their state and federal officials to weigh in on what's going on. We do look at emails, we do look at letters, we do look at tweets and things like that. So it's important to get the message out to your elected officials to let them know how you feel on pieces of legislation. So educating, encouraging, and also doing what I can, and the walkout was part of that, to make that statement and take the fight to that national level, that we're pleading with the Congress and the Senate to make sure that indeed, if we can't do something on the local state level, we can do something on the federal level. We talked with Joe Manchin, we talked to most of the senators, we talked to a lot of the congressional people. They're on board with it, and we're hopeful that if not before Labor Day, which is right after, there will be a vote to vote out, hopefully, either the John Lewis Voters' Right Act or the For the People. We are really hopeful that something can happen and that our quorum break nets into something good. So I've been working, Tiffany, very hard to make sure that I keep my colleagues that are like-minded, that we stay together to continue the fight.
And I'm thankful to you for bringing people together and making sure that all of our rights are held intact. You've been busy because there's the gun laws, House Bill 1927, the gun laws that are up for debate now. What do you think about that? Because we've got all these people out there.
It's one of the worst situations. And again, that's why I say, Tiffany, this has been probably one of the worst sessions that most people have seen in Texas history.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about permitless carry, I want you to know, Tiffany, I went to the bill author and I said, sir, why would you put forth a bill that says people don't need training, they don't have to have a permit to carry a gun? Now I'll tell you, law enforcement is against it. So here's a colleague on the other side of the aisle that says they love the police. Now you're putting more guns on the street without a tracking mechanism to be able to harm even more law enforcement. It's a problem. So for me, I'm like, and he had the audacity to tell me, well, it's going to help Black people. I said, how's that? He said, well, now the police just can't stop them. I said, sir, if indeed, folks that look like me are shot with a shiny cell phone, can you imagine if officers walk up on a group of young folks, young people of color or poverty people that have guns? They're going to shoot and ask questions later.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've put our law enforcement in harm's way. We've elevated it. We're saying that people can go get guns and don't need a permit and don't need training. To me, that's out and out wrong. There's no argument to say that that's a good thing. We want less guns on the street, not more.
Now, I want to go back to something that you just said, and I fully agree with that. Actions. Look at the actions of the people that are talking to you. Right now, we have a Senate that is fully vaccinated, yet we have senators, and I'm talking about the US Senate. We have senators who are telling citizens, it's your right not to get vaccinated. Well, now that's a true statement. It's your right not to get vaccinated. But the very individuals who are telling you that and telling you that you should go out and exercise that right have decided themselves to get vaccinated. We have to start paying attention to the actions and not the words of the people that are talking to us, because words can deceive. Actions show you exactly what a person is about. What are they doing? Not what they're saying, what are they doing?
And no doubt, Tiffany, and I'll tell you, we don't even have to go to DC. I'm gonna tell you what's happening in the State House here. So the Senate, on the Senate side, there's 31 senators and the Lieutenant Gov. They all have to be tested, vaccinated, and guess what? You can't even go on the Senate floor unless you get tested that day. I wanted to visit some senators to help carry pieces of legislation for me. I had to go get tested and or show that I have been vaccinated, okay? They wouldn't even let me in the door. On the House side, which is just across the rotunda, masks are not required, vaccinations not required, and you don't have to show proof of anything. So the House of Representatives truly do not represent the people. If people get a chance, they need to really look at the live streaming and see all of those guys walking around there with no mask. There's been over 12 legislators who have had COVID, okay? And still no mask, no vaccination mandate, no oversight or anything. Now, that gets me to our children. You know, for our governor to step up and step in and say schools can't do X, Y, and Z, that's wrong. If parents want to protect their children from a virus, and obviously, and I want to say this loud and clear, Tiffany, this virus is bad. I knew this back in December of 2019 when our professional leagues start shutting down. You don't shut billion-dollar businesses down unless it's something out there. So, you know, when billion-dollar businesses start shutting down, you know, this is worse than what we've been told. Look at the hundreds of thousands of people that have died. This is bad news. And so I think about growing up, we were vaccinated for polio and other things. It was mandatory. We've got to look at this vaccination as the same. It ain't just about you, but it's about grandma, it's about your mother, it's about your siblings, it's about your neighbors, and it's about the community. They've already told us the effectiveness of it is high. We've already seen the results of it. People that have been vaccinated is less likely to go to the ER. We need to make this happen. Having rights and being, I won't call it stupid, but I would call uncaring. Uncaring.
Insensitive.
Yes, insensitive, correct.
You know, fighting this virus has been, experiencing a pandemic has been upending for most Americans, for everybody across the world. Everyone is experiencing, you know, unprecedented depression, illness, all related to the pandemic. To hear someone make a statement like what our Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick made, saying that the reason that the state of Texas is experiencing the spike we're in right now in COVID vaccine, in COVID-19 infections is because of unvaccinated African Americans. What did you think when you heard that incendiary comment?
Well, you know, Tiffany, I'm an individual that's very optimistic, and I give people a little pass if they make a mistake. I believe, you know, again, in the glass being half full. So I'm gonna assume what he meant was Black people were suffering more because we have more unvaccinated people. But people need to know we have to go back into the history of how Black Americans was used as guinea pigs. And we can go back to the Tuskegee research project that dealt with syphilis and how they killed many of those Black men over years. Also, Black people are afraid of systems, and those systems have not been fair, true, or honest. So the apprehension is there. So all I can say to our Lieutenant Gov is this: he's misinformed. If you looked at the data and looked at the numbers to see who truly are being impacted, I think he would change his statement. But I think one of the things, Tiffany, we have to realize too, as Black Americans, sometimes we're used as the blame or the excuse for things going wrong. Okay. And so it's so easy to point that out rather than saying not only just Black San Antonio, Texans, which, think about it, we make up about 23% of the Texas population. So what's the vaccination rate of the other, 87%? And so to pick out 23% and say you're at fault, even though over half of your people are vaccinated, okay, but the others aren't, as we know, is just misinformation. So I'm a believe, as an optimistic woman, that he misspoke and it wasn't clear exactly what he meant, because it was obvious he has not looked at the data.
Well, you are definitely diplomatic, because this would not be his first time misspeaking. But anyway, beyond that, When you look at what's happening with us in terms of our vaccination rates, what do you want to see Texans doing?
What I like to
Especially-
see, what I like to see is that we highly encourage everyone to wear masks. I am a big believer in people's rights. So I'm not one to buy into you mandate people. I believe keeping government out of people's homes and especially their bedrooms too. So I'm a big believer, but I also believe the way we do it is we promote it. You know, we put money behind all type of advertising. McDonald's ain't number one because it got the best hamburgers. Heck, back in the day, it did the best advertising. Okay. We need
Mark Outings has the best hamburgers, but
there you go. I love the jalapeno burger over there, cheeseburger over there.
okay. I can't get enough of Mark's.
So the reality is, I believe people do have rights, but I do believe when you win the minds and hearts of the people, Tiffany, they will follow. And we have to continue the educational program, the marketing program, and helping people walk through this journey. I've seen a lot of young people who are well misinformed, who are misinformed about the vaccine. They thought they're putting a chip in your arm and it make you sterile for the future. So people have come up with a lot of myths. We've got to dispel those myths, not discount them, but dispel them. Because one thing one of my colleagues across the aisle told me one last session, Tiffany, when we were debating the subject, and he says, I have an opinion too. And you know what I did? I stepped back, Tiffany, and I say, you're absolutely right. But those things that we can come together on, let's come together on. On this, the deadliness of it, we need to encourage, mass, educate, and market that is the right thing to do. And I believe we'll win the minds and hearts of the people.
Barbara Gervin Hawkins, thank you for coming and being on the record with Tiffany. I think you're now, of course, I think you're top drawer and one of the best women that I know and that I have the pleasure of spending time with. You've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany. Come back. We have much more to talk about this year. This is going to be a great end of the year, and let's get together and spend some time together. We're more alike than we are different. Our guest today proved that. She's doing work across the state for all of the constituents, not just the constituents in the 120th district, but the constituents of Texas and the constituents of these United States. So thank you for joining. Thank you for listening to us today, and come on back next week to listen to On the Record with Tiffany. We can be found on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, 10 TV, WOAI, or KBB 29. Check us out.